everybody. It's Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. Today I'm going to tell another story about my childhood. This story takes place in the same time frame as the pet rattlesnake story. So I was living at the same place, at the same house. If you've watched any of my other stories, you probably already know that my parents moved back and forth across the country many times when I was young. So that's kind of how I remember things, as to where I was living, and where I was living kind of tells me what grade I was in. And this one, if you haven't seen the rattlesnake video, I'll put the link in the description for anybody that's interested. But this one starts in that same home where I had the rattlesnake. So my father was an alcoholic, but he drank just straight vodka. He'd have a beer once in a while, but pretty much what he drank was just straight vodka right out of the bottle. One time I remember my mother came home from work or something, and she brought him a bottle of wine. And I was about eight years old, something like that, when this happened. She brought him a bottle of wine, and he tasted it, but he didn't like it. He said it was too sweet and fruity. He didn't like it. And I heard that as a little kid, so I went up to him and asked him if I could have it. I liked sweet and fruity things when I was a kid, like most kids do. But most kids don't have a father like mine. He says, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." Now, I do not remember whether he was drunk at the time, or I think he was sober, but he could have been intoxicated. Either way, the story ends up the same way. So he says, "Go ahead, I don't care, whatever, just leave me alone." So I go into the kitchen and I get the wine off the countertop and I pour myself a glass, and while I'm doing this, my little 6-year-old brother comes in to the kitchen, and he asks me if he can have some too. And I didn't know any better, so yeah, sure. So I got him a cup and poured him some. The bottle was like this big when I was 8 years old. I got it under my arm pouring it like that. So me and my little 6-year-old brother are drinking this wine. He's probably drinking it out of a sippy cup, but yeah, we get pretty well hammered on this bottle of wine. Next thing I know, we're wandering out onto the back porch, and the back porch was like a big deck, but the deck came out from the house like this, and underneath the house the ground sloped away, so the deck was like 8 feet off of the ground, the edge of the deck, and there were no safety rails or anything. This is back in the 70s. No safety rails. It was just a little set of stairs on the side instead of wooden stairs. So we're out there on this deck messing around, and I remember walking out to the edge. Of course, we had to walk out to the edge. To inebriated children, they've got to go right out to the edge of this dangerous deck. And I remember looking down at the ground down there and looking at my brother and stuff. I didn't touch him. I didn't, we weren't horse playing and roughhousing around. I don't know how it happened, but he goes off the edge of this deck, like head first. And he hit the ground, and I hear a crack. I was like, oh no. I'm looking at him, and he's down there just laying down there on the ground. He's not making a lot of noise, but I heard something break. So I panic, and I run back to the stairs and run down, and then all the way around to where he is. And there's a hole in the ground where one of our dogs had dug or something, and his shoulder is in that hole, and he's just laying there like that. So I help him and get him up out of there, and I start feeling his shoulder, because remember, I heard it. I heard it snap from up there on the deck, and right here, his collarbone, the bone was like this. I could feel, I could run my hand across his collarbone and I could feel that the bone was completely just snapped in half like that. It's like, oh man. I said, you broke that bone right there. And little 6-year-old kid, and this goes back to the toughness video. If you've watched that video, the Gen Xers are tough. My little 6-year-old brother looks at me and says, "Don't tell Dad." I was like, I was like, screw that, I gotta tell. If this goes for a few days, you know, and then they find out later and find out that I was hiding it from them and didn't tell them, they will beat me senseless. No, I'm telling. So I get him up out of the hole and get him up, and I, you know, pretty much walk him, drag him into the living room where my parents are, and I tell him what happened, that he fell and busted his collarbone. So they start, you know, they feel it, and this incident is how I learned the name of that bone. That's a collarbone. That's how I learned it. It was from this incident. And they started, oh, he broke his collarbone and all this. So they both of them put him into the car, right? And this is the only time I really remember them ever taking any of us to the doctor, except for the time that I broke my thumb, but it was already healed, nothing was done. Yeah. So my mom did take me to a doctor over my thumb, but other than that, that's the only 2 times anybody went to the doctor was for those 2 broken bones. So they both get into the car and drive him to the doctor and leave me, an 8-year-old who's intoxicated, to babysit his little brother or his little sisters. So now I'm here at home with 2 sisters. I'm supposed to be babysitting, and I'm drunk. So that's the kind of stuff that happened when I was growing up. And it's still, I look back and it's just mind blowing. Why would you? The bad decisions just stack up on top of each other. Why would you give a little kid a bottle of wine? And then after he drinks it, why would you leave him alone with other little kids to babysit? But it happened. Luckily, nothing else happened while they were gone. I remember they brought him back, and my brother's arm was in a sling, and he was good. It healed up. I don't remember what the doctor did beside that. Maybe he set the bone somehow. I don't know. I don't know the details of that. I forget. But luckily, nothing happened to me or my sisters while they were gone to the doctor. And that's the end of that story. I'll leave you there with that. If you have a subject, Generation X related, that you would like me to talk about, please feel free to leave it in the comments. I enjoy making videos for y'all with your inspiration. It's a really cool thing. So please do that. Please, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Leave your comments down below what you think of it. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X. I'll see you on the next one.